Well, hello everyone, and welcome to NGLCC Communities of Color Initiative, better known as CoCi's Stress Awareness Program. My name is Alicia Green, my pronouns are she and her, and I am the Director of Supplier Diversity. My colleague Sean Franklin and I are co-leads of CoCi and are very excited to host this program recognizing Stress Awareness Month. The agenda today is as follows. We will have, well, I did the welcome and introduction. We will have the mission for MH3 by Rico Ricketson, the founder and CEO of MH3, and then an introduction of health experts, a self-care exercise for stress and burnout, the science of stress and burnout by Dr. Tulsi Patel, her pronouns are she, her, and ways to self-cope with stress and burnout by Erin Matthews. Her pronouns are she and hers. It will be followed with a live Q&A, and then we'll have our closing remarks by our very own Sean Franklin, manager of our Stakeholder Engagement Center. So I first want to give some ground rules. Please, if you have any questions during this presentation, to put them in our chat box and we can try to get to them when we can, or we can provide those answers for you after the program. Also, as you can see, there are 3 dots by your name. Please put in your pronouns so we can all be inclusive for this seminar. So without further ado, I am so happy to introduce our presenter today. Rico Ricketson is the founder and CEO of MH3, a certified LGBTBE. With a background in the advertising industry, he decided to use his passion and desire to help and save lives. He took his 20 years of healthcare advertising experience and combined it with his expertise in human-centered design and his master's in biology neuroscience to create MH3. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Rico. Welcome, Rico.
Hi, thank you, Alicia and Sean, for the introduction. I am Rico Ricketson, the founder and CEO of MH3. And before we get started today, I first wanted to say thank you to NGLC and all of you for making mental health a priority, especially during this time. As you all know, we need it. So I wanted to say that, as well as thank you for allowing us to share our mission of MH3, which I'm going to do now, and as well as give you a glimpse into what we do. So with that, let me share some slides with you that will tell you more about us of MH3. So first of all, like I said before, thank you, but also I'm not here alone. I'm also here joined by 2 of our experts who you will hear from shortly. As well, behind the scenes, we have our Chief Marketing Officer, Scott Prafke, who you'll see in the chat. So give a shout out to Scott. Thank you, Scott. But welcome to MH3. MH3 stands for Mental Health Ideas, Insights, and Inspiration. We are a minority, disabled, and LGBT-owned subscription-based platform for mental health education. Our over 50 health and wellness experts are from diverse communities across the US, sharing their ideas, insights, and inspiration for improving your mental wellness, all with the mission of normalizing mental health through their real life and professional experiences. Now, our diverse experts not only allow us to reach a wide audience with mental health education, but also reach audiences that have often been ignored and not part of the conversation. And so our experts include women, men, Black, Indigenous, people of color, LGBTQI+, and people living with disabilities. And their expertise ranges from mental health to physical health. But one of the most common questions we receive, right, is where does MH3 fit in the landscape? Because a lot of people may know of Calm or Headspace, but where do we fit in the landscape? So if you look at the landscape of mental health, there are over 1,000 companies in the landscape, but you can divide it into 3 core customer segments. First, there's mental health conditions, mental wellness, and mental performance. However, most companies have been really focused on mental health conditions, which is, you'll see things like, I know I've been enjoying it, telehealth, and I know our experts have as well, of having that ability to bill for telehealth. But also, if you look on mental performance, you have Headspace and Talkspace. So where we fit is in this middle, which mental wellness, it's often been ignored and under really served because of long held stigmas, right? Of that ability to have daily mental wellness. And mental wellness stands for the ability to cope with the normal pressures of life, to work productively, and also to contribute to your community while managing these stressors. In other words, you're learning to recognize and manage the signs and symptoms of mental health conditions before they become something more serious. So, for example, for today, right, we're talking about how to manage stress and avoid burnout. Well, you're going to get not only the science of anxiety, but also the ways to self-cope so that you can learn to both recognize and manage the signs and symptoms of, worsening energy, your changes in energy, mood, or sleeping patterns before they become something serious. That's really what we do in this space to make sense out of the telehealth, to make sense out of the calm and the headspace. We fit firmly in the middle so that you can have a continuous journey with your mental health. So then also, as I'm going back, well, now I'm going forward, but is we also, for our services, so our subscribers, you can have a monthly subscription or an annual subscription, as well as we have enterprise subscriptions for those that for larger organizations. But you'll have access to thousands of minutes of mental health education videos, our blog, as well as our live events. Now, our newest service is our MH3 in the workplace. Now, as some of you can only imagine, one of the environments that has had the worst impact for those during this pandemic has been the workplace. And as you know from before, not often do we always have the best measures to help with mental wellness in the workplace as it was. So a situation is getting even worse, and every workplace is unique. So what we've done is we've created a service where you can have custom content to address the mental health needs specific to your employees, or if you're a health insurance plan, to your members. But rather than talk about it, we want to show you it. So that's why today, when we partner with NJLCC, as you can see, we'll more of a format of a live workshop. We're able to get stress, right? They wanted to focus on stress. We came with a proposed outline of what that could be based on the environment and what we know now. And then we took your questions to help shape it even further. And we'll answer some of those questions that we don't do in the core section in the Q&A. But without further ado, I think it's most important to introduce the two people that will be joining me for the remainder of our program today. And that is Dr. Tulsi Patel, is a psychiatrist, and Erin Matthews. I don't know if you two want to say hi quickly before we start.
Hi, thank you for having us.
Yes, good afternoon. Thank you so much. This is so important. I'm excited to talk about real topics that affect all of us.
Yes, I am too. So with that, we'll get started first with Erin. And we're going to go through, just to get us all started on the right foot. One thing we like to do, especially in our live workshops, it's a lot of information, right, coming at you with mental health. And so sometimes you just need to relax and calm so that you can listen to what we're saying and focus on what you're learning. So with that, Erin, I know I am the guinea pig for today. And so other people, you don't have to do it yourself, or you can. We're not watching you, but I will be doing it. So you can see me doing it. And if I'm peeking my eye or something like that, call me out.
That's okay. And that's what I want to start out by saying. Everyone is different. If you need to open your eyes for a minute, or if your mind wanders to be like, oh, shoot, did I forget that at Target last night? Oh, fine. Just go with it, because when we start to be like, stop it, you're being stupid. Or, I hear so many things in therapy where people call themselves out, and I'm like, that's actually being really mean to yourself. So if you wonder or your breath starts to go, it's okay. Just bring it right back.
Thank you, Erin. That's great. So we have a self-care exercise, right, that you use, that we can use for stress and burnout. But let's get started.
Yeah. Okay. Do you want me to take you through? So I have my cup of tea, but if everyone could please make sure you have water or tea. Water is huge. obviously.
Anymore, but I have water.
Yes. And if during this time, if anytime you feel a little triggered, or this has been an awful last 2 weeks, awful. So if you feel a little triggered or feel like, oh, I should be doing better, or I'm not doing this, or just take a drink, take a breath. Because what we know is when people are under stress, we're holding our breath or we're breathing too fast. And our nervous system then continues to be wrecked. So if everyone could just get in a comfortable place, whatever feels good for you, feet on the ground. I love to get a little woo woo to be like, if you need to put your feet on Mother Earth, feel her, whatever you need, please do it. Hands can be just anywhere in your lap, or you can either have them up or down, whatever you feel like you need to receive or not. And just start with hand over heart, other hand on belly, and just a deep breath in for 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold. 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold again. 4, 3, 2, 1. We're going to do one more round. Your eyes can be open or closed, whatever makes you feel safe. We're going to go back up. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold it. 4, 3, 2, 1, and out. 1, 2, 3, 4. And you can also hold at the bottom for another 4, just to let your body sink in to where you are, especially for my people of color, to say to yourself, we have hope. We are safe in where we are to as much as we can be. The ancestors are with us, and we are okay.
Thank you. I always, I know I do this. I've done it before, but it's right. It's a lot of the things. What I want people to realize for mental health, it's a lot of work. It's not easy. It doesn't happen overnight. One breathing exercise, right? We think like a lot of us make it, right? And may familiar with breathing exercises, right? And not knowing when to use them or how to use them in your day, but they truly do make a difference of allowing you. I just wanted to do 5 minutes to show you that you can take a 5-minute break, right? Like allow yourself. Sometimes I know for me, sometimes I can't seem to take a break or want to take a break. Because I'm like, I want to do this so I can take a break later. But the 5 minutes of resetting of what we just did, I really appreciate that.
You got it. And I always harp on people about this, about lunch. Are you eating lunch? And then where are you eating it if you are eating? Because I hear it all the time, like, well, I just didn't have time. But then you're going to have time for anxiety or depression or panic attacks. And, those things sneak up on us easily. And we are all in this hustle culture. So we're fighting against all the things we are being told we need to get done, and then trying to take care of ourselves at the same time. So I always joke, which is, it's not really a joke, that self-care is a full-time job on top of your full-time job and parenting or taking care of your own parents and all the things you got to do. It really is a priority shift.
Agreed. So with that, thank you, Erin. And I know you're going to come back where we'll talk about ways to self-cope with stress and burnout.
Yes.
But now we'll bring up, CoCi will join us for understanding the science of burnout with psychiatrist CoCi Patel. Thank you, CoCi.
Hi, thanks, Erin. That was great.
So for CoCi, we really want to talk about understanding the science of stress and burnout. And I know a lot of times you and I really do focus on the science of mental health conditions such as anxiety or depression, because a lot of people are really unfamiliar with what it is. And once sometimes you can understand what it is, you can really easily recognize it. But with that is there's a lot, as Aaron had just said, right? There is a lot that's going on. And there are mental stressors, right? There are a volume of mental stressors that are going on. But what are the most common mental stressors that your clients have been experiencing during this pandemic?
Yeah, I think you said it correctly that there's a volume. There's a ton of stressors that people are, facing. I think obviously just COVID in general. There's sort of this fear or worry or stress surrounding the actual illness, whether you'll get it, whether somebody in your family or somebody that you care about will get it, if you'll spread it, even if you don't have it yourself. There's so much fear just surrounding COVID in and of itself. I think like the next level of stress comes from adjusting our lives to COVID and the new guidelines that are always coming out. I think a lot of us are grieving sort of the loss of the life that we used to live and all the adjustments that we've now had to make into our lives. A lot of people have unfortunately faced like changes in their jobs, losing their job, adjusting their job to working from home. And that can be really complicated and stressful. I think if you have a partner or a spouse at home, if you have roommates, if you have children at home, managing everybody's schedules from home can be really stressful. Finding a place where people can do school and others can do work is a lot. On top of that, I think there's also stress related to things like the vaccine, understanding of COVID in and of itself. It can sometimes be difficult. There's new information coming all the time. So, things are uncertain and unclear. I think right now, especially, there's some things kind of going back to quote unquote normal, or we're returning to eating a little bit more with our friends and having chances to go out. And I think that kind of brings about a social stress, or in some cases, social anxiety, just because we've been isolated for so long. So that can be stressful. And then I think kind of all of this can be summed up with sort of uncertainty. Like the uncertainty of what COVID is, how it's affecting our lives, what it means for when we are out of the pandemic, and what will be next. So I think, a lot of sources for stress for everyone. I think it fluctuates and varies kind of depending on your personal situation and depending on the time and in the pandemic and everything like that. But I think we all have a lot on our plates that we're worried about and stressed by. And I'm glad that we're able to sort of like at least recognize those and talk about them.
And two, I think for people to realize as well, right, that these stressors don't magically disappear when the pandemic is over, that
Right.
when you are back in the office, that a lot of these echoes, right, from not treating it or learning how to manage it, some people may not be experiencing something now. And I'm not trying to use this as dread and doom by any mean. It's more of we all need to ask for help and seek treatment, because this is hard time, right? And it's mental health is always hard, like we've said, but really taking this time to realize that you're not alone, right? That just hearing what you said of the validation, right? Of even understanding of having more sympathy or empathy for others that are not in our same situations, to really understand that it's affecting all of us. But I know today we're going to focus specifically more on stress and burnout. But what happens to our minds and our bodies during this stress? I think a lot of us, right, hold on to stress and that reactive state that I had mentioned, right? I can make it, right? And so what is really happening when we're saying I can make it for our stress?
Yeah, exactly. So I think sort of what you're talking about, or that feeling of being activated, is sort of the initial response that we have to stress. It's natural, it's appropriate, it's what our body is designed to do. Is when you initially have a threat or have like an acute stressor, you're supposed to get activated, your heart's supposed to race. And this can be a positive thing when it's short term. So when that happens, that fight or flight response of our body, we release a bunch of chemicals into our body, and we're designed to sort of react to it and be effective and be able to handle that increase in energy and activation. But I think the issue and the problem arises is when that sort of lasts for a long period of time and becomes chronic. We're not designed to sort of have that chronic stress. The chemicals and things like cortisol that are released when we have that acute stressor can be actually quite problematic if they remain in our system for a long period of time. It can affect our physical health, our mental health. kind of just all of the parts of us and how we function. So yeah, I think that activation is good and appropriate and happens for a reason, but it's not supposed to be sustained. It's supposed to sort of relieve itself once that stressor goes away.
I think it's important, people. I think a lot of times we framed it as, right, when you're in that reactive state, it's, well, obviously you're reacting to these mental stressors, right, without being able to have shape of tools or anything you can use. And there is that possibility, especially with the stress, that you don't just need to survive,
right,
you can actually thrive. And that's where you get into the proactive mental wellness. I think a lot of us just are surviving, right? And I say all of us, meaning like just all of us collectively. Certain people may be a more proactive, certain people a more reactive state, but you can thrive.
Mm-hmm.
And I want you to be able to say that to yourself today, that you can thrive. You don't need to just survive, because surviving's not healthy. I mean, surviving's healthy, obviously, but not just surviving is not healthy. So there's that. And then what are the types of stress we can experience? I know there's different types, but what are the types of stress that we could experience?
Yeah, so I think there's various ways to sort of categorize stress. I think obviously what I just mentioned right now and what we kind of talked about of an acute stressor versus a chronic one, so something that's just for a short period of time versus a long period of time. I think in our lives, we can have positive stressors versus negative stressors. So positive stressors would be things like events, prom, weddings, things like that, where you're anxious about them, you're worried about them, but it's not something that lasts forever and it's a positive thing. It's something that you're motivated for. Then there's negative stressors, things that are not necessarily positive, that are chronic, that are unrelenting and sort of, for, I guess, breaking you down instead of actually like helping you get to a certain sort of point. There can also be classifications of stress as being internal versus external, the pressures that we put on ourselves versus something that's coming from the outside world, like COVID-19, that's an external stressor on all of us. And then another way that I've seen it sort of categorized would be by the specific subtype of, is it a physical stressor? Is it something like a trauma or, an injury or an illness or something that you're going through? Is it more psychological? Is it something that has to do with how you're feeling and your emotions? Or is it a psychosocial stressor, kind of like we mentioned before? Is it changing your job, changing your sort of relationships, changing your social life, all of that kind of stuff? So I think stress can be looked at in various different ways, just depending on sort of like the way that you like to look at things.
No, that's great. And then what is, and I know we've talked some of this, right, and this is our final question before we go to Aaron, but is how can stress and burnout lead to something more serious? I know, and we've talked about it, right, that surviving thing, but I think a lot of it, hearing the words from a psychiatrist, I think will make sure that that thought really does cement in people's head of like, when is it something more, how does it lead to something more serious?
Yeah, and I think that has to do with sort of the chronicity or how long you have that stress. Like I said, we're not like naturally designed to sort of handle that heightened energy and that heightened stress for a long period of time. So I think especially with psychiatry, what happens is that stress can just worsen, it can linger, and then it can lead to something that's a diagnosable condition, right? Whether that be sort of an anxiety disorder, like we talked about before, of panic disorder, like panic attacks or panic disorder. It can be a generalized anxiety. It can be a social anxiety, which we're seeing quite often now. It can be a depressive disorder, like major depressive disorder or depression. It can be things like PTSD, OCD. I think also if you don't have other sort of coping mechanisms, it can come across as a substance use disorder as well. And so obviously these are all things that affect mental health, but then also sort of physical health can also be affected by the sort of chronicity of stress. So people can develop things like type 2 diabetes, heart disease, a bunch of other sort of medical conditions as well. So, stress needs to be addressed because the sort of long-term consequences are pretty significant. So it's important to recognize it, get help, and do what you can to sort of address that.
Thank you, Dr. Patel. And as a reminder, right, we don't need to just survive, and we shouldn't. It's just to be for a short period of time that we can thrive. But thank you so much. And I'd like to, and we'll have you back for the Q&A, but I'd like to introduce Aaron Matthews again for the ways to self-cope with stress and burnout. And Erin is not only are you a therapist, but you're a mental wellness coach and the founder of Living in Empathy Institute. And I should say as well for Tulsi, for the link for her practice, our Scott will provide a link for that in the chat. And then after this too, we'll provide a link to Erin's practice as well. So if you can find out more information, because our goal with everything we do is to make sure at least one person asks for help or ask for help, right? Or we can save a life. And so with that, if you get direct access to our experts, we hope that that can help with someone as well, just beyond just what we're doing now. But with that, Erin, thank you for joining us for Ways to Self-Cope with Stress and Burnout. And thank you for the wonderful breathing exercise. I know I needed
that. For sure. And thank you, Dr. Patel. I was like, every time it's a reminder of like, keep thriving rather than staying stuck in that survival. And those, those physical symptoms, they sneak up quickly. It's very real.
Very. And then once you're dealing with it, right, it even makes it even more complicated to address your mental health. But with that, what are ways we can help manage stress and burnout? I know we did the breathing exercise and we talked about, right, make sure you have water, but are there other ways that we can help manage stress and burnout?
Yes. So I tell people a lot, think about what is all on your plate. And have a really honest conversation with what do I need? And what are some things that aren't serving me at all? And thinking about what are some of the things physically, emotionally, spiritually, where you're lacking and what can you think about would start to fill you back up again, whether it's talking to someone, having people around you that give you support, people around you that can laugh through your own childhood traumas, because we all have them, and be like, oh, you think your dad was crazy? You want to hear about mine?
Here you go.
Yes, exactly. To have those people around you where you can just be you. Yeah. And also with stressors, we know where we spend most of our day. And for most people, it's at work. And to think about, is my work environment serving me? And if we take away the financial piece, am I living my passion? Is my work really fulfilling me? I'm very lucky. I have social work really is my passion and I get to live it. But I have so many clients that are like, I could give or take my job. And I don't have that in my life. I don't have that passion piece. So I really work with people to be like, okay, you're spending 10 hours sometimes a day around work. And that for so many people is the biggest stressor in their life. And to really think about having those honest conversations about like, can I keep going like this? And I think COVID has torn off every layer we put on to fake the funk or to get through. And it's like, whoa. So to really think about what is not serving me and what is serving me and what I can do more of.
And I think one of the things not serving us, right? And it's something that existed prior to the pandemic. And that's, we don't always know how as colleagues or friends or family members really to help someone that may be dealing with stress or burnout, right? Because we're like, just get over it. Or I did this, you should do that. But how can we help normalize stress and burnout, not only for ourselves, right? I always call this part of it of like, I put my oxygen mask on first, and then I put your oxygen mask on. So how do I help others to normalize this? What can we do to help normalize?
Right. To have an honest conversation about what humans do not like. That is change. And change happens so abruptly that everyone's like, no. And then control. We have no control. Control is up in the air. And just to say like, hey, I've been struggling with this, like, it just seems overwhelming. And many times when we are vulnerable, it gives other people permission. And then all of a sudden we're having this open, honest conversation where it's like, oh, I'm not weak. I'm actually human. So hard to do. And that takes sometimes personal work and being in a safe space with people that you can trust, whether a therapist or friends, family, maid, family, colleagues that you trust, to have some of those. Because if we're all holding it close to our chest, then that's literally where the physical symptoms start. So many people, like the breath goes, blood pressure goes up, migraines. And it's like, I see it all the time. Or it's like, I had a client this morning, she's like, my leg is swelling up again. I was like, well, you just presented for 5 full days on Zoom with no break.
You're like, your body's reacting.
And so it's like, just because we're just so used to go, 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 that what happens to our body and our mind while we're in that mode, and we think we're okay until we're not. And it is okay to say to someone too, to be like, are you okay? Like, no, for real, not just, oh yeah, I'm good. Like, are you okay? Because you seem sad, and obviously with a person that is able to receive it, but even those coworkers who you might not know well enough, even with all the turmoil that's been going on, to be like, you know what, I maybe I don't know what you're going through, but I'm here. Do you need me to or just bring someone coffee, or just say like, hey, I know that there's a lot going on. We have this project. I can take this piece, so you can just do a little less. It's like learning how to just be really good, open humans, which is hard to do when there's a lot of pressure.
And judgment's easy, and and it's easy to judge without context and to compare someone else's experience, right? And there's a lot of things out there that I know that you can even compare your level of trauma. And I'm like, to me, trauma is trauma, right? For you individually. And we have to work through that on our own, and we get help from people like yourself, right? Or we can learn through videos and other things and seek treatment.
For sure.
But I think it's most important to realize is that we not only have to have the grace for ourselves, but we have to have the grace for others.
Mm-hmm.
That's not something we're often taught, right? Someone in pain, what do you do with someone in pain is where you start. No matter what that pain is, if that's anxiety, if it's depression, if it's racial trauma, right? Of all those things, you do the same things of accepting and supporting someone that we could all do.
Right.
But
so right.
When is it at that point, right? And when you're dealing in this reactive state, when is it time to seek help and or treatment for stress?
Mm-hmm. It's when you can get to having an honest conversation with yourself, to be like, am I sleeping? Am I eating? Am I short with the people around me? Am I not my best self? Or am I waking up each day just like, ugh, there's nothing I want to, and I've seen this a lot with people of color, and we've seen this through COVID. It's been so much that it's not like people are actively suicidal. It's just like, I live, I don't, meh. And when you're to that point where it's like, wow, like I'm losing a part of me, I'm losing my joy, the things that I've really enjoyed in the past, like they're just not hitting in the same place. Or it's just like, I have so many people that are like, I was at my house folding laundry and I had a full-blown panic attack. And it just comes out of nowhere. So to get to that point to say like, no, I actually need some space for myself, whatever that looks like, nature, therapy, thinking about taking time off, which we know people just leave so many vacation days on the table. Like asking yourself, what do I really need?
And I think it's great because you brought up all these points, right? Of what we focus on in MH3 for experts such as yourself, right? To remind us that we all have 4 things. We have the bravery to face a fear.
Mm-hmm.
We have the resilience, right? To withstand those around us, right? They can often sometimes be those that are causing us to have worsening mental health. But we can also have the grace for ourselves. And the one thing that is very rare to talk about in mental health, but we should talk abundantly about, is there's also joy. There is joy you can have. And when you learn new tools and you learn how to recognize and have the conversation that we're all having, right? You can leave this more educated for yourself to start really customizing for yourself a healthy lifestyle for your mental health, to really
Yes.
focus on something we have not had an opportunity to focus on.
Right.
But Erin, Erin, I also know too, and Scott's going to provide this link now that will direct to your practice,
Mhm.
but there's also, people can purchase, which is amazing. Not only can they schedule a consultation with you, but they could also purchase a poster for SelfCare Checklist Written Habits, correct?
Yes, and I keep the cost really low. I want people to just be able to access. It's a checklist for all people and checklist for specifically people of color too.
Yeah.
And then habit trackers to go with it. So you're like, oh, I'm going to eat something green. And people love the coloring piece because it's soothing and it gets your mind off. 50 things you got to do. Yeah.
I love it. For the last for the next 15 minutes, we wanted to bring Tulsi back and have Erin here as well, so that we can address the Q&A. So as you notice, some of the things we covered in our live workshop today, based on the conversation we had, were based on the conversation we had in GLCC, as well as the questions you submitted. However, there are some questions, right, that really we want to call out specifically. We may not be able to get to all of them, but we wanted to get to as many as we could during this portion. But if you have other questions, right, that please submit questions. And if we need to address them offline, we can, or if we have remaining time, we will. But let's get started with these great questions that were submitted by our audience. So the first question is for Erin Matthews. So Erin, I appreciate the focus on avoiding burnout, but what are the ways to deal with burnout and to dig out from that hole? What happens after one tries to exercise, meditate, spend time with friends, do fun things for yourself, having a spa day? I want one of those. And then it still doesn't make a difference in feeling stressed or burnout.
Yes. Yes. Oh, I can tell you personally, I have been in this space, and I want to be careful with the word burnout also, because it's kind of a blaming word. I'm doing something wrong, so I'm burnout. And when I've worked in systems as a social worker, which are setting us up to fail, it's actually a moral injury, because I'm being gaslit that I'm not doing enough, when I know the research shows I should not be in a school of over 1,000 kids and be the only social worker. And then I'm burnout. No. The system has harmed me. And I've been there. I've been to fancy spas. I've been to crappy spas. I've been meditation, food delivery. I've done it all. And the fact was I had to be really, really open and transparent with myself that I can't work in a system anymore and deal with my poverty mindset, because I was so scared to leave that paycheck. And I had to break up with being in fear. And lots of times fear keeps us in places and situations that aren't made for us. And then it just, I had someone tell me that my joy was being stolen, and I need to stop letting it be stolen. And I did. It was not fast. Therapy, healing with people, other women of color, coaching for myself to get my own practice up and running, which imposter syndrome told me, am I supposed to be a business owner? Can I write off $750 haircuts? Like, is that for me? Is that my life? And it can be, but if you don't come from that, you don't know. So it's really finding that place to heal and then get to a place of strength.
Yeah.
But yeah, no.
I had to do my thumb too. Sorry. I had to put my thumb up because that, yes. And I think we all, like for me specifically, right, finding my journey of healing, of being a gay, multiracial Latin male in healthcare advertising as an executive was rare, right? But it's great to be able to share with my passion of the experiences I've had, right? But also the professional experiences to be able to create something like this. extremely healing because you, like, I don't know for you, I remember saying to my husband a couple months ago I've never said this. I'll tell you that. I was one of those people that did my job, and just like you had said, joy may have been part of it, but usually on the back burner part. And I remember coming to my husband, I was like, I don't know, but I found what I want to do with my life. And that's right. And that's a culmination of passions and everything. And where it shapes our lives is that there's healing for us, right? It doesn't mean you need to heal. You don't need to everybody become an entrepreneur, but whatever that healing is.
Of course. Yes,
So,
it goes back to do you, boo. Do you. If it is possible, you can do it.
Exactly. Agreed. So for our next question, thank you, Erin. For our next question I have for Dr. Patel, I'm a midlifer full of all the midlife angst, trying to evaluate my life to see how can I improve it, live happier, etc. Would love to have you touch on some midlife issues men face.
Sure. So obviously when people sort of reach that time in their lives, I think they're often reflecting back and looking back at things that have happened. I think one thing that perhaps can be unhelpful is kind of focusing on the would have, should have, could haves of the years that have gone past. And I think that can be really negative and sort of like your mindset and even helping you with moving forward. I think sort of the most positive thing I could say is sort of, leaving the past where it is, knowing that you can't really necessarily change that, but you can learn from the experiences that you've had and kind of move forward. But I would take sort of inventory of where you are at this specific time in your life, see how that differs from where it is that you want to be. And it doesn't mean like you want to be there right now at this age. It could be whenever, but where it is that you want to be, and try to just come up with ways to get you from point A, which is today, to where you want to be, forgetting the past in terms of like what could have been, and instead just focusing on what you could do now. And that would be sort of my motivation. But I do think, or my advice, but I do think that is a specific time in life that can be really challenging because you are looking back at many years and many life experiences, but know that you still have a lot ahead of you, and you can make that what you want by just taking charge today.
So true. And as a man in that range, very in that range, it's also as well, I think the hardest thing, right, for all, especially for men, in vulnerability. And the vulnerability of looking back at your past of professional and life experiences of based on what you know now, and being comfortable with knowing, whoa, I really didn't know what I was doing or talking about, right? And that's a vulnerable thing to do because those things also shaped who you are. But the idea though is that you can heal. A lot of us say like, oh, I'm from a family, like my mom had depression, or my cousin, or it runs in my family. Oh yeah, that's hereditary, right? And the thing is, it could happen to anyone. And the reality though is it does take work, but we can have a new horizon that is informed by those past experiences. But how much better is when you have these past experiences, we're able to look at them and go, I can even do better. Right. And I think that's a hard thing to deal with. Right. And something that, of course, just our Q&A, you're going to have to go through those and figure that part out. And if you have any questions that are out that are a part of this as well, we can help address those as well, or to connect with one of our experts to have a deeper discussion. But thank you, Tulsi, for addressing that.
Sure.
Now, great. We have another question for you, Tulsi, and that is, are there tips on how to avoid burnout after working and taking care for an elderly disabled parent?
Sure. I think this is a great question. Obviously, I want to start with, being a caretaker is an incredibly difficult job. And I think one of the ways to sort of lessen that burden for yourself can be to actually acknowledge that you are a caretaker, and to acknowledge the fact that, you're doing the reason that you actually even quote unquote signed up to do this, right? It's for somebody that you care about, somebody that you love, and that further down the line, you'll look back and know that you did this because you cared about this person. And I think that can sometimes help with just feeling overwhelmed, knowing that this is something that you actually innately fully want to do and acknowledging that. I think also just acknowledging that it is difficult, it is hard, right? You don't, depending on the ailment of that person, it can be weeks, it can be months, it can be years that you will be in that role. And, you know, that's incredibly variable and it affects people in different ways. And I think it's okay to sort of feel burnt out or overwhelmed at times during that course. I think ask for help. You know, you shouldn't have to do any of this stuff alone, even if it's just help for an hour or if it's help for a few days so that you can get away. Anything that you can do to just ask for help is okay, and allow yourself to do that. I know that can be difficult because sometimes we feel like we have to be there all the time to take on each and every responsibility, but you know, you don't. The world will keep going, and it'll be fine even if you step away for a moment. And along the same lines, I just think take time for yourself. Just like was mentioned before, you know, if you don't help, like Rico said, if you don't help yourself first, you can't help somebody else. So you need to take some time for yourself, even if that's, you know, a 5-minute breathing exercise like we did before, or self-care or spa day or whatever it might be, going for a walk and just clearing your mind. You have to take care of yourself, and only then can you sort of be present and be fully productive when you're helping as a caregiver. So that would be sort of my advice.
Thank you. And then my last question I have here is, I think this is for Erin, is many on this call are business owners. Can you address how to avoid burnout as an owner while focusing on cash flow or the economic losses of being a business owner?
Oh yeah. That's yeah. Like triggered.
Both of you now are in that state because CoCi just opened up her practice. So this is a good question. Thank you.
Very, very real. And I remember startup mode is it's rough. And then you're just like, oh no, I gotta maintain this. And your whole life can be consumed by work. So what can you do to put things in place? And I know this is a privileged way to think. If you don't have time to clean your house, I tell women this all the time, women business owners, women in general, hire it out. Find someone who then you are supporting their business, who can then support you, because something's going to give. And that's where the health issues come in. So are you taking breaks? Literally, I can use myself as an example. Between clients, I have made myself lay down. Let's say I'll have like a 2:00 spot where I have time. I literally lay down. And that is something that I just didn't know how to do. And I've learned how to do, but also like you have to take time away from your business if it's going to continue to thrive. Because if you're in a constant stress space, we know brain fog is a real thing. And so then you're going to make decisions and mistakes. Then there might cost you money and might cost you way more time. So are you taking a Saturday off? Are you limiting? I work with clients to say like, okay, what does a morning look like for you that you're starting your day authentically? And many people are like, I don't want a meeting before 10. Okay, then don't. How can you then structure your day so it's very productive? But then at night, you're watching your favorite show. You're watching Married at First Sight. You're watching something where you're like, I don't want to think. And your brain is actually in rest mode, where then you like, okay, I got my emails ready for tomorrow. I got everything ready, but right now I'm off. Yeah. And being off is so hard when it's your baby and you got bills and you have children who want $100 sushi dinners and bubble tea and all of the things. The money is no joke. And we really have to think about, I loved what Dr. Patel said, like, thinking about our regrets and are we beating ourselves up? So if we only have half of our life, we have half of our life left, many of us in this room, maybe a little more, genetics are good to us. How am I going to live authentically? Do I want to work 80 hours a week, or could I scale back and just lose maybe 20% of my income? And can I still be okay on 20%? And it's a lot of what we do as business owners, like, oh, then I can get a better car, or I could treat myself to a new bag, or I'm going to get those shoes I always wanted. And is that filling a hole that we've been told we need to do, but it doesn't bring us any joy? Is it like busting my butt in my business, then buying me a month off to go travel?
Yeah.
Or can I be on Zoom with people and be like, I know I'm not getting on planes anymore. I work with many consultants that are like, I'm not getting back on a plane.
No.
So if they want to hire me, and guess what? They all hired her. They're like, that's no problem. You don't need to be flying to New York anymore. Because she set her own boundaries, and she's good. Many of us are good, and people like good people, and they will keep us.
So there's a video of Dr. Patel of you saying, being kind to yourself. Right? Like, and that's the hardest. I think of that all the time, to be honest, of when I'm doing the business, right? And stress is normal for all of us. And I think for people in the mental health field, you deal with stress as well, right? But what you're talking about, right, of holding on, and I've even learned of like, I hold on to my breath, right? And we've talked about that, of holding on to your breath and being like, okay, I'll get it done. I can breathe after this. If I just do this, and my husband will come in and talk to me, I'm like, leave me alone. I can't do anything. I can't walk the dogs. You can't tell me to do anything, right? Because I'm like, I will get this done. And the reality is, when I do listen to my husband and be like, okay, maybe I should get a little distracted and do something else that benefits me, like, I don't know, watching our reruns of Golden Girls, I do change. Yeah, because this very woke programming, if anyone's ever watched, I'm so surprised. Like, I'm so surprised. We've watched from the pilot on, and I'm just like, this is actually TV that's actually good TV that I don't have to worry about someone being offended all the time, right? Or like them offending someone intentionally. Is just good programming. But that's my way of self-help, right? Of like just turning the brain off of something I've seen before, right? And we do it in all different ways. But that was all the time we had for questions for today. But like we said, this is a preview of what we do for MH3 in the workplace, of one of our live workshops. We also do custom mental health videos, as well as we can do specific mental wellness courses. But it all starts with just a phone call or an email at info@mh3.co that you can connect with us, and we can get a program started for your custom mental health. And in the meantime, you have access to be a subscriber, free trial. You can go to mh3.co to be a subscriber, and you can join for a free trial. We have a monthly, annual, and enterprise plan. But with that, I wanted to turn it back over to the NGLCC with Sean. And thank you, Aaron.
Hello, everyone. Wow, what a great program that we've had today. And thank you so much, Rico, and your team for putting this together. Thank you, Dr. Patel and Aaron, for participating as well and sharing your wisdom and knowledge. I know I've learned a lot today. It feels good to know that I'm not alone in this, that, you know, sometimes you think you're the only one that stresses out. And this is great information. So I hope it was helpful to everyone who participated today. Also, I want to thank the NGLCC and the CoCi committee for acknowledging that programs like today are needed, and especially after the year and few months that we've had. We'd like to thank everyone who joined us today. We hope this has been as helpful to you as it has for us. Like I said, I know I feel less stressed. Do stay tuned for additional CoCi events in the months to come. If you have any questions or suggestions, please email us at coci@nglcc.org. And as that's on the screen now, there's more information about our presenters today. Please feel free to subscribe, get in touch, do what you can to help you with that day-to-day stress. And I would like to close with what one of my favorite people says at the end of every one of her shows: if you don't love yourself, are you going to love somebody else? So
Exactly.
thank you guys. Have a great day. I love me some RuPaul. So
Yes.
thank you.
Thank
Everyone
you.
have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. Have a great day.